Hey everybody, welcome back to another One Beer Chat. Guys, I can drink a beer with you again. I'm excited to be feeling much better. I really do. And you guys, honestly, thank you so much for your prayers, for reaching out to me. I appreciate it more than you guys know. The antibiotics, they certainly helped. They kicked in, and I feel back to normal now. But I honestly believe your guys' prayers were just as effective as the antibiotics. So sincerely, thank you guys for thinking about me and praying for me. And what I want to talk about today, now that I'm kind of back in the swing of things, I got some catching up to do, but I'm getting stuff all buttoned up, dialed in, ready to go for the 2023 season, which for me here in Michigan starts October 1st. But I know a lot of you guys are either coming into seasons or seasons are fast approaching, or maybe they just started. This is kind of the Crossbow Hunters, if you want to call it like right before the season or as the season is starting checklist. Just some things to go over, some things to consider, just to make sure every, I is dotted, T is crossed, that your season is going to be a success and that your equipment's going to be working and everything's going to be buttoned up. So that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? So cheers, you guys, to another One Beer Chat. So the first thing I just kind of wrote a few things out here. I've actually got 7 items, and we'll kind of go into a few more details on a couple of them. But as far as preseason stuff, before your season starts, if you haven't already done this, definitely give your crossbow a really good once-over, okay? Check the limbs. Even if it's shooting fine, even if everything looks fine, good thing you can do is take a cotton ball and just run it over your limbs on both the outside and the inside of all your limbs, and just make sure that there isn't some little crack, fracture, delamination. And if there is, it's going to snag that cotton ball. It's going to leave a little bit of cotton. It's just something that'll help you. If you can't quite see it, the cotton ball trick is a really good one, just to make sure your limbs are all good. Make sure your strings and cables are good, you guys. Check the loops on the cams. Check where the string is interfacing with the trigger box mechanism or your trigger latch. And make sure like your servings look good, your string's been waxed appropriately, just all that stuff. And if something just doesn't look right, if it looks worn, I know time is tight, but it's better to take care of it right now than have something rear its ugly head once the season gets into full swing. Your cables, the exact same thing. Just check those out. Make sure you're waxing those. Make sure everything looks good there. Just make sure the limbs, strings, cables, all of that looks like it's ready to go for the hunting season. And another thing to check are the fasteners on your crossbow. So make sure stuff isn't loose. Make sure things aren't going to rattle and make noise, like your fore-end grip. Definitely your scope mount, like the rail for your scope. Make sure that is all nice and tight, just so something doesn't get goofy on you while you're out there hunting this season. So just an overall general once-over of your crossbow. Make sure all of that is ready to go for the season. Wax and barrel lube. So you guys, I'm sure you've been doing it throughout your practice this summer, but make sure you're doing that throughout the season. So make sure that rail is waxed. I mean, you're going to be cocking your crossbow. You're going to be firing it to discharge it, or if you have a decocking mechanism on your bow, just the string moving back and forth on that rail. I mean, that's gonna wipe the rail lube off of it. So just make sure you're touching that up. Make sure that it's good to go. And same thing with the string wax. I know you're not going to be sending a bunch of arrows out of it, but you're going to be exposing your crossbow to the elements. And so that wax is not only going to help it, wear or protect it from wearing just from normal shooting, but it's also going to help protect it from the elements. So make sure you're keeping up on that throughout the season. Item number 3. This is a big one for me. This is one I take a lot of time and I'm passionate about. That's know your arrows, know your broadheads. So make sure you know exactly how. Now that you're putting a broadhead on it, doesn't matter if it's mechanical, doesn't matter if it's fixed blade, doesn't matter what it is. Make sure you know exactly how that thing is going to fly. I like to do, literally, I take my best, 3 or 4 arrows, whatever fits in my quiver. I usually only take 3. But I want to take the best 3 arrows that I've got, and then I want to match them up. I want to shoot, my 3 broadheads that I have, the ones that I'm going to use for the hunting season. I want to shoot each broadhead with each arrow and figure out which broadhead arrow pair is the best. And I want to have basically my 3 best arrows with my broadheads numbered one, two, three, and I'm shooting number one first because that's the best of the best. Number two is my second best. Number three is my, third best one. But just know exactly how those things are going to fly. Make sure they're hitting where they need to be. Make sure they're flying true. They're not sticking in your target all goofy at different angles and stuff. Just make sure all of that is dialed in. Don't just slap them on, replace your field points and slap them on. And honestly, all of this goes the same thing with mechanicals. If you've got one that you can actually shoot and make sure the actual mechanical flies true, awesome. I know they're a pain in the butt to resharpen. Maybe you've got one that you're using as kind of a practice one. Maybe you're using the practice broadhead, that come with a lot of the mechanicals. Whatever it is, just make sure all of that is dialed in. Don't take the flies like a field point marketing literature on the package or on websites or whatever. Don't take that as gospel. Shoot those things and make sure you know exactly how they're flying. Practice throughout the season. And, I know you're probably not going to shoot as many arrows as what you did over the summer, or sighting your crossbow in or getting everything dialed in. And I get that. That's fine. If everything's buttoned up good, you really shouldn't have to shoot a lot of shots, but just shoot it to make sure something didn't change. Just maybe it's once a week. Shoot it and make sure your scope didn't get bumped, or your fastener, like your scope rail's not loose, or something, goofy's happening. Just shoot it just to make sure that thing is still dialed in as the season progresses. As you're taking it through the woods, you're probably knocking into a few things, or it's getting cold, it's getting wet, all that stuff. Just make sure it is continuing to perform as you expect it to throughout the season. So take a few practice shots as you go. Number 5, this kind of goes into some of the bang and bump and all that stuff, is be careful transporting your crossbow. And I'm going to say transporting, but I'm going to bucket a couple different things into that. I'm talking not just like in your car, but walking to and from your stand. And I think a really big one is pulling your crossbow up and down from your stand. That's assuming you are a tree stand hunter. We'll start there. If you guys got a case, use it. I wouldn't have your crossbow cocked in a vehicle. Obviously you're going to have an arrow off, but I wouldn't leave it cocked. When the crossbow, they're already wound up tight as can be, not cocked. When that thing is cocked, there's just a ton of stress on the limbs, ton of stress on the cables and the string. Any bump and banging around, that is going to eventually create an issue for you. And it might not be an issue right now. It might not be an issue in a week, but if you stress something too much, if you create a microfracture in that limb, any of that kind of stuff, it can rear its ugly head at the worst possible time. So be really careful, especially when your crossbow's cocked. That goes the same thing for walking through the woods. If you do walk with it cocked, just take extra precautions that you're not bumping it on trees, banging it through a bunch of brush, all that stuff. And the same thing, which I think is a really big one, is going up and down from your tree stand. If you guys can, I know it's a pain in the butt. If you got a crank or something, I would, if you can try to. I know it stinks because I don't like doing it either, but if you can cock it when you're up in the tree, I think that helps. If you can't, that's fine. If you've got a permanent tree stand setup, one thing I like to do is I like to try to make my tow rope a little bit shorter than actually on the ground. And then I like to try to use it or try to suspend it from something like a bow hanger, so that rope is away from the base of the tree or the trunk of the tree, and that my crossbow is going to stop short of the ground. That way it's not bumping or banging into anything. I can clip it on, even if it's cocked, it's fine. I climb up, I pull it up. It's not bumping or banging into anything. If you guys can't do that, if you're a mobile hunter, and I mobile hunt too, you just got to be really careful. Usually the going up isn't bad. Like, you can set your crossbow down in a good spot and pull it up really slow. It's just sometimes that going down as it hits the ground and just wants to lean, fall, that's hard to control. So just do your best to not bang that thing around going up and down from your tree. If you guys can, and I know this is kind of a pain in the butt too, if you feel comfortable shooting it, decocking it before you climb down, I think that's going to help too. Obviously, I know that can be an issue if you're trying to sneak out of there really quiet. You don't want to spook deer that are maybe close by. If you can, though, that is only going to help make sure your crossbow isn't getting damaged going up and down the tree. If you guys are a blind hunter, I know we're talking transportation, but if you're a blind hunter too, man, make sure, even if it's pop-up blind, but pop-up blind or a hard-sided blind, make sure you are aware of the walls, the windows that you're shooting through, just so when you touch off a shot, that your limbs and your cams aren't going to smack the side of a blind and blow your crossbow up. Item number 6, I also think this is a really important one, and that is know your shot distance. And this is one where you gotta be honest with yourself. This is not you and your buddies relaxed on a nice summer day, shooting arrows in the backyard, seeing how far you can hit targets and stuff. Okay. Crossbows are amazing feats of engineering. We can all shoot very accurately, very far with some crossbows and some arrow setups with field points and feel great about it. But that does not necessarily transpire into hunting. Okay. So when you've got your broadheads, part of item 3, know your arrows, know your broadheads, you got to know your effective range. And a friend of mine, Steve White, he had a really good kind of way to gauge yourself or know your effective shot distance. And what he said is your hunting setup, your bow, your arrow, your broadhead, what can you hold in a 2-inch group? And now he's saying 2-inch group. I personally think you could maybe turn that 3-inch group, let's say 2 or 3 inches. But what he's getting at is he's saying that your margin for error when you're nice and calm and everything's dialed in and stuff, like you can hit some really good groups. But when there's a big buck in front of you, when you've been sitting all day, when it's cold as heck, that 2-inch group is going to expand into a much bigger group. So having something where you can consistently, with your broadheads, with your hunting arrows, shoot something like a 2 to 3-inch group. Once you start in a nice calm practice setting, getting outside of that, that's a good metric for maybe this is too far for my setup. And it's okay, you guys. Crossbow hunting, still bow hunting. I know a lot of people can shoot far. I know people do it all year, or not all year, but they do it every year. They kill deer at really long ranges, and that's cool. There's people with setups that can do that, but that's not everybody, okay? And it's a lot more fun to get really close to stuff and shoot slam dunks than trying to lace a 80-yard shot out there and hope you hit something. So just be honest with yourself. Check your setup. What can you hold a 2 to 3-inch group? Know that that group is going to expand when there's an actual animal in front of you, and make that your effective shot distance for the season. And guys, finally, number 7, and I think this one to me, I think is the most important, and hopefully this resonates with you guys too, is enjoy yourself this season. Just soak up all of God's beautiful creation that we as hunters get to experience, and the things that we get to experience that nobody else does, that are out in the woods. Just soak all of that in. We get wrapped up a lot of times, and trust me, I do too, with target animals, goals for big bucks, number of deer we got to kill, how much meat we got to put in the freezer. And I mean, all that stuff is good. And I've got goals, all of us do, but don't let those take away from just the experience, just from the beauty that we get to see day in, day out from the stand. That is literally perfection. It's God's perfect scenario. I mean, those mornings where, maybe it's frosty, maybe it's just clear and crisp, and as soon as the sun comes up, the birds are chirping, squirrels are running around, you're seeing hawks flying around, there's deer everywhere, you might see turkeys, all that stuff. Just that, what I'm talking about. I don't even know how to describe it, but just that when you sit back and you're like, wow, this is just gorgeous, man. Soak all that in. Not only do we get wrapped up in hunting goals, but you know what? Life is something that throws us all different challenges. We're all battling certain things. We're all going through stuff. There's plenty of junk on TV and social media and all that stuff that can just get us wrapped up, spun up in what's going on in the world. The woods is a place where all of that is not there. It's void of all of that stuff. So when you're in your element, when you're outside of your phone, your computer, work, social media, the troubles and trials that we're all going through, just sit there and smile and soak it all in and just know that that is why we hunt. Shooting stuff, putting meat in the freezer, all of that. Obviously, that's the goal, but just enjoy yourself out there in the woods because the season goes by as fast. And next thing you know, it'll be wintertime and we'll be looking forward to the next season. So soak all of that time in, enjoy God's beautiful creation. And you guys, honestly, having that mindset too, I think makes you a better hunter when you're just relaxed, you're enjoying yourself. Whenever I'm in that element, I almost always find myself having a really good hunt and honestly having more success than when I'm stressed out, I'm overthinking things, I'm keyed in way too much on what the deer that I'm trying to shoot is going to score, all that crap. Just enjoy yourself this deer season, okay? That's what I got for you guys today. I hope those items make sense. I hope those items are some things that you're doing or that you're going to do. I think if you do those type of things will just help you button everything up, dot your I's, cross your T's, and help you, have a successful and an enjoyable 2023 deer season. So that's what I got for you guys today. Thank you again for joining me on another One Beer Chat. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, do me a favor, as always, hit that like button down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We'll have more content coming for you soon. Take care, everyone. God bless. And remember, be a sportsman, make a sportsman.